No. So I come from Yvette University, born and raised in Joburg, and my practice and my research is all about performance poetry and the ways in which queer Black femmes create spaces for liberation through that art form. And today I'm going to be presenting kind of a performance / conversational presentation that dives into the concept of femme rage, which is something that I think about quite often, and how we live in a society that privileges a very passive approach to rage and kind of silences the rage that femme bodies experience and move through. And so this presentation is really just about kind of looking rage in the face from my perspective, especially as somebody who has moved through a lot of shame with regards to my rage and the way that it shows up in my life. And I'd like to locate this in the dream space, because that's a space where we quite literally don't have control and we can't touch our dreams. Once we fall asleep and we enter the dream space, it's the subconscious mind that comes forth, and we kind of just take a back seat. Most of us don't even remember our dreams. Most of us don't even have access to that world in that way. So I thought it would be interesting to share some excerpts from my dream journal, which I keep, and then also share some poetic expression, speaking through this concept of femme rage. So the title of this presentation is called Dreaming from the Margins of an Anti-Rage Society. I'd like to start actually with some breathing. As you all know, when we fall asleep, it's really the breath that kind of lulls us into that sleep state. And I think it's nice to start the morning with some breath just to ground us. So I'd like to invite you all to close your eyes. That's okay. Close your eyes, please. So just notice your breath as it is currently. Just notice how it feels, how it sounds, where it's coming from. Notice how you feel in your body right now. If there's any tension, pain, tingling sensation, cold. Just notice how you are as you are right now. I'd like you to start to deepen your breath at your own pace, in your own time. Just deepen the breath. You can breathe through your nose or through your mouth, wherever is most comfortable. And as you deepen your breath, start to notice how the energy shifts, if there is a shift at all. How you feel with each breath, with each inhale and exhale. I want you to feel into any particular sensations in your body that are calling for your attention. And try and breathe into that space in particular. And deepen the breath even more now. Let it be audible. And deepen it even more. And continue to notice how your body feels with each breath, whether there's a change. Continue to deepen the breath. Hours pressed against each other into a narrow week, leave no room for play. The days are warming up again. The first sign of spring peeks over the neighbor's wall like a curious child with no siblings to bounce energy around with. Just as I begin settling into sleep, I feel the aching pain ringing through the muscles of my lower back. My limbs are already too heavy to move. I groan internally. I try to make peace with the pain. I negotiate with its dubious pulsing for 10 minutes. I didn't realize it before, but I am losing this battle. My mattress is a tightly woven collector of unrealized dreams. I flip my body to the cool side of my bed. The new day seethes. Weeping may tarry for the night, but rage comes in the morning. Dream 1, 13 June 2022. I often dream about familiar rooms. I often dream that I am back in my childhood body, a complicated skin. I dream about shapes and colors, corridors and windows I know very well. The cool arteries of my high school, a childhood bedroom, a moving vehicle belonging to my father. Memories visit in the form of architecture. Yet, I seem to have a task to complete, and no way of completing it. I seem to be running out of time. I am both in the choir and the song at the same time. My throat glides between worlds, instrument and prisoner, instrument then prisoner. The dream is a loop of cascading voices and sounds. I'm going to look for my body. The dream space reveals many questions that don't always have a space in the conscious world. Questions that arrive in very disjointed expression. Questions about the body, questions about what it is that we're looking for. And these dreams that I've been having that are occurring often put me in situations where I'm looking for something that I don't know what it is. And in that searching, I find myself disappointing people. I don't know how to satisfy them. It's always a chase, always a chase. And this made me think about the ways in which femme bodies are often put in positions where they feel like they need to achieve something. They need to achieve femininity in a way that seems completely impossible. There's all these rules about how to be, how to exist, how to satisfy whatever gaze it is. And our bodies don't seem to belong to us. And we constantly have to look for them in the waking world, whether we know it or not. This is a poem called Coaching. Do you ever just scan the terrain to find the nearest exit? And when you find it, negotiate how far you must carry your limbs to get there? What about the inner voice playing with its volume? In case you have to scream for real, just in case. I carry a backpack full of just in cases. A can of pepper spray, just in case I need an extra 30 seconds. Just in case my legs can carry me far enough. A necklace of apologies to drape over my collarbones, just in case I need to de-escalate a situation. A collection of potions so I can figure out how to turn myself into a human being, just in case he mistakes me for something else. A list of numbers to dial, in case my tongue dissolves in the emptiness of my mouth. A compass, so I can find my way home when it's over. I'd like to invite you to close your eyes again, so you can indulge in some music. And while I'm opening the music, please notice your breath. Please notice how it feels in your body. Please notice your body as well. This is a poem called Pulling Words Like Teeth. The front door is half open at the sorry mouth, pooling with apologies. This home is a site of mystery, a vacuum-sealed, airtight container for constellations unnamed. Every family has their secrets. Their big underarms, sullen and swollen, filled with blood and hot to the touch. It is a tender time of year. The girl knows this because she sees how the adults tiptoe around her bedroom in the center of the home. It's not as if she can ask questions, so she stuffs her pillows with assumptions, buries them like seeds to her subconscious, right next to where her prayer is supposed to be, and pretends to sleep peacefully each night. She practices her cool gaze when she sees the scars on her mother's hands, the hissing stains on the generation's old carpet, the lifted gaze in her older sister's eyes. She is an expert at remaining unaffected, unfazed, and unwilling to power. December howls against the fragile window frame. Its boisterous, flaring, audacious gaze knocks on every hollow brick. The girl does not remember what it feels like to be afraid. She is too numb for that, too ripe for the surrender. Before anyone knows it, the girl is a woman, sturdy on two bruised legs, standing on the other side of the open door. Her father is a melody splattered all over the walls in hoarse, uncertain whispers. Her mother stays outside in the garden, her scarred hands tinted green from talking to the plants all day. By now, the mother has completely collapsed into pebbles and compost. The woman takes a step into the house, faces the sour walls, and moves into the kitchen. She grabs a chef's knife and carefully removes a limb without clipping a single nerve, just like her sister did so many years before her, and places it on the center of the island, an offering. She moves to the living room and sprinkles her blood onto the armchair where her father used to disappear into his cigarettes. The stench is stubborn and boasting. She thanks it for its honesty. The woman floats up the stairs, each step an old friend giggling at her touch. Her room is a deflated balloon, the secrets leaking from the pillows. She picks it up, calls it by name, and sets it on fire. I often dream about having arguments in which I say everything that's on my mind. Only my jaw is completely numb. My tongue won't move. My mouth won't open. I'm reaching to say the words that I know I can finally say, but my body says no. There's so much resistance that I feel physically, yet my mind is completely open and soaring. What is it about femme rage that is such a threat? Why is it that I can't say what I need to say without getting in trouble, without facing a violence that I can't even conjure up in my own dream space, that I can't even imagine? Why is the imagining such a crime? Why is it that apologies are easier said? Why is it that the rage doesn't have a language yet I know it better than anything else? This is a poem called A Femme Finds Their Father's Gun. A femme finds their father's gun under their mother's cold white pillow. It leaves a dent in the mustard sheet, etched into the marriage like a preserved vow. There is no shame in looking for things, except for when they do not wish to be found. The father goes to his corporate job the next day, the gun wedged between a packet of loose cigarettes and a portable first aid kit in the backseat, ready for use. The femme names the gun Rage. She keeps it. She uses it, even when no one else can see. In this way, rage is an offering. It is not blind. It is the thing that unveils the truth. It is the thing that lets us be, but only in our dreams.
Thank you so much, Sisanda. That was amazing and unforgettable. Wow, and thank you also for keeping to time. I know it's hard when one gets to poetry and the music. It was really wonderful. Thank you. And now on to Shilika. Am I thinking that?
Yes.
Shilika, welcome. Would you also likewise introduce yourself and then
can everyone hear me audibly? My name is Shilika Chisoko, and I'm an MA student at Stellenbosch University. I'm in the second year of my MA in English Studies, and my research focuses on the representations of women in contemporary Zambian literature, the online space. Okay, so the presentation. My preparations for this conference led me down somewhat of a rabbit hole, in the sense that before the call for presentation, when the call for papers was sent out, I hadn't even read our sister Killjoys, and I hadn't even engaged with Ama Ata Aidu's work at all, to be honest. So then, because I really wanted to come here, I was so keen on presenting, I just pieced together some information on Google and came up with an abstract. I was like, okay, I'm going to present. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually picked up our sister Killjoy, so I could actually write this presentation. So here we are. And putting together the presentation was interesting because that, when you're reading synopsis of work, you don't actually get the essence of what it's about. So what I thought I could relate into my research, I found that I couldn't. And I was struggling as I read the novel because I was like, sometimes I'll be like, aha, I've got it. And then other times I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so distant. I'm trying to move away from like post-colonial stuff and focus on more contemporary things. However, this precarious situation actually gave me a sense of, from this precarious situation, I had the realization that this sense of uncertainty exemplifies the experience of being a killjoy, a person, in this case a woman, that is unsettling and unnerving, a woman that does not conform, a woman that does not keep the peace. Therefore, I'm using this understanding to begin a discussion on the portrayals of Maggie in A Hand to Hold and the Madame Sister in The Madame Sister. I seek to understand what it is about these women that makes their protagonists fear them so much. Are they just stone cold madams, or is there more complexity to their characters? Additionally, I will briefly touch on the possible effects of these two stories being online primary narratives and the capacity that they possess to be emancipatory alternative narratives. Okay, so synopsis and background of the stories. A Hand to Hold was written by Mani Kambangu and won the inaugural Kalimba Short Story Prize in 2018. The award is given to unpublished short stories by Zambian authors, irrespective of whether they reside in the country or in the diaspora. According to the website, submissions for the prize can only be made online. The story, A Hand to Hold, follows Kunda, a nervous bride-to-be who is in the process of planning her wedding. The story is set in Lusaka, Zambia, and part of its wedding planning process, involves her mother hosting meetings at her house with many of her aunties in attendance. Kunda, on the other hand, loves this process, evidenced by the following excerpt from the story where she remarks, I look around the table and I can barely remember a happy moment with these women for helping my mother plan the happiest moment in my life. The story constantly shifts locations between Kunda's mother's suburban house and a small deserted house in Ngombe compound. A compound is a densely populated area with the Zambian equivalent of a South African township. This deserted house belongs to Aunt Rita, who was a domestic worker for Kunda and her mother. Kunda has a better relationship with Aunt Rita and seeks her out to invite her to her upcoming nuptials.
Kunda's mother scoffs at this idea, claiming that it is inappropriate and embarrassing to invite their former maid to Kunda's wedding. An argument ensues between the two women, and Kunda begins to sob, which results in Maggie offering the glaringly cold response: "Calm down. She cannot come to your kitchen party. It is not her place." After this conversation, Kunda revisits Auntie Rita, and she seems to gain a sense of satisfaction from this interaction. Madame's Sister is a story by Mbozi Haimbe that won the African Regional Commonwealth Short Story Prize in 2019. Like the Calendar Prize, the Commonwealth Prize is awarded to unpublished short fiction, and submissions for the prize are made online. The narrative is told by the lens of Kefas, a gardener that works for a woman solely referred to as the Madame in Lusaka. The story begins with him unhappily preparing for the arrival of the Madame's Sister from the United Kingdom. He is displeased at the amount of work her imminent arrival has given him. Commenting on the extra work, he says, "I blame Madame's Sister for all this upset, all this rush, this VIP treatment. Very important pest, if you ask me." Kefis' experience of being a gardener in suburban Lusaka is juxtaposed with his home life in Umana compound. He laments about not being able to go to a tavern and owing money to a vendor for a chicken. Kefis arrives home late from work because of the Madame's Sister intending arrival, to his wife's displeasure. Upon arriving, Kefis is captivated by the Madame's Sister in both a condescending and enamored manner. He is intrigued by her platinum blonde wig, blue contact lenses, and red lipstick with matching nails. At the same time, he disapproves of her smoking and drinking habits, and in a surprising turn at the end of the story, he steals her platinum blonde wig and presents it to his wife, who had been wishing for a human hair wig. Our sister Maggie. Maggie is presented as a cruel and uncaring mother from Kunda's perspective. However, other details in the text allow the reader to piece together information that does not exonerate her for being unkind to a child, but rather contextualizes her behavior. There is no mention of Kunda's father in the narrative, which implies that Maggie had to raise Kunda by herself. Being the primary caregiver means that Maggie had to shoulder the financial and emotional responsibility of caring for her daughter. From the interactions between Kunda and Maggie, it is evident that Maggie chose to focus on financial responsibility. In the following reflection on her struggles with motherhood, Maggie says, "The struggle to educate herself at university was an accomplishment, but keeping Kunda and herself off the streets was a trial that came out of nowhere. She fought to keep her job and fought even harder to rise in it. Making more money and greater success was important to Maggie. It was what she did to keep her child clothed and fed. It is evident that choosing a career meant that she had less time to attend to her daughter's emotional needs. But this does not seem to be enough to excuse her kind behavior. I find myself questioning whether this is the case because of the emotional trauma experienced by Kunda, or the social expectation that mothers are supposed to be warm and nurturing. Maggie's character is unsettling because it is difficult to neatly place Maggie in the good box or the evil box in a manner that complies with conventional narrative structures. Instead, Maggie's character exists in an in-between space, one that is murky and slippery, one that is uncertain. She is a killjoy. She is a woman who disturbs the peace. Yet her character denies confinement to being solely portrayed as a good goal-driven woman or a bad mother. The lack of clear-cut classification provides ample opportunity to analyze the oppression of women in society, as well as develop an intersectional approach to how these same women can be oppressive through looking at issues such as race, gender, and class. For example, Maggie looking down on Auntie Rita, women who belong to different social stratosphere, but also have to work in order to support their children. In the story, Rita also doesn't have children to take care of her because she spent her entire life caring for Kunda. So in this way, we can understand Maggie as being forced, not necessarily forced, but rather having to shoulder the financial and emotional responsibility of caring for her child, but at the same time being unfair to Minah in how she treated her and sidelined her. Our sister, our Madame sister. In order to understand the significance of the way the Madame sister is portrayed in Madame sister, it is necessary to analyze the role that class plays in how Kefis navigates the world. Although the area his Madame resides in is unspecified, context clues such as the car his Madame drives and the presence of two domestic workers, Kefis and the maid, Elena, suggest that she lives in a suburban area. This is heavily contrasted by the life he leads with his wife in Minah, and many of his neighbors are poor, struggling to even piece together a meal. Having grown up in similar circumstances, Kefis tries to care for his neighbors by offering them meals. Yet when he goes back to work, he's met with a life of comfort and excess, represented by his madam and his Madame's sister. He watches his Madame's sister smoke, drink, and speak loudly on the phone, partially with disdain and partially with amusement. She could not be more distant from his reality. His lack of proximity to the comforts of suburban life is further illustrated by how he addresses his boss and her sister. He only refers to them as the Madame and the Madame's sister, and this is why I also refer to them as the Madame and the Madame's sister. They have no names in the story. This amplifies the social and economic distance amongst him and the two sisters. Although he is physically in close proximity with them, he could not be more alienated from the sisters. This is why the Madame sister is presented in a pariah in the manner in which she is. Not only does her arrival signify more work for Kefis, the Madame sister also dares to deviate from social expectations. She sticks out like a sore thumb, her blonde wig, her super high heel boots in the glaring Zambian sun, and her loudness, sometimes portrayed as arrogance. However, just as with our sister Maggie, it is difficult to simply lump her into the villain box. When Kefis decides to make off with her wig, she becomes undone. She sobs heavily, and when Elena, the maid, expresses shock at how much she is crying, the Madame sister says, "Don't you get it? How thick are you? I can't go back. I have no papers. What you see on me, and in those suitcases, it's all I have. It's everything. It's 10 years of my life. Just a wig?" She laughs, hysteria in her voice. "You have no idea how tough it really is." This statement is the only context that has been given to the reader about her background, aside from the fact that she is coming back to Zambia from London. Yet it explains so much of her behavior. She has clearly experienced some form of dislocation in the way, She has clearly experienced some form of dislocation in the way that she has to return to Zambia. Her blonde wig and her blue contacts, although they may seem ridiculous, embody her desire to belong and perhaps return to London, a place she was seemingly forced to leave. She too is a killjoy, an unsettler of equilibriums. Her feelings of dislocation do not justify her ill treatment of her sister's workers, but they do contextualize her behavior. An interesting aspect of the story is how Kefis steals her wig and gives it to his wife, a woman he loves. This act confirms that Kefis does not purely despise his Madame's sister. Rather, he despises her lack of conformity, her deviance. That she dares to exist so loudly and disruptively is too much for him, and perhaps taking the wig is a way of him regulating the disruption. His decision to give the wig to his wife proves that he likes it, or at the very least is amused by it, just not by the fact that it is worn by a woman like our Madame's sister. These stories are of particular interest to me because they are by Zambian authors, and also because they've been published online and they won literary prizes. This is, what can I say? This is a phenomenon that has occurred in Zambian literature in the sense that women have long been excluded from literary production. For the longest time, men have dominated the literary scene, and the first publication by Zambian women was only printed in 1982. And the next one, I think, the next noted known one, was published in 1997. And it's called The Heart of a Woman. It was a collection of short stories. So the fact that Zambian women are gaining popularity via these literary prizes is interesting in the sense that it speaks to the capacity of the digital sphere as providing women and really other subordinate identities the opportunity to produce not counter narratives but alternative narratives. And by participating in the production of these alternative narratives, they perform a sort of resistance similar to what our keynote speaker was speaking about. Not a resistance in the sense that they are trying to fight and perform a form of violence, but rather that they are asserting their identity. And this assertion of identity, I believe, can foster some sort of social and social discussion on the position of women in Zambian society. To support this claim, I lean into Maria Pia Lara's assertion that women's narratives can be emancipatory. She writes that viewing language and reason as communicative and differentiated spheres of validity leads to an understanding of how, with the subjects of speech acts focusing on newly problematic social issues, it is possible to transform them by creating new narratives in the public sphere. So by presenting women not as saviors or villains, but as complex characters, these authors participate in a production of meaning that facilitates, I would say, productive discourse about the position of women in Zambian society, and on a larger scale, contributes towards canon formation of Zambian literature, which has been lacking, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Great, well done, and thank you for sticking to time. So Kaata, I know because we stayed in the same hotel and we breakfasted together. So I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses today, which is why I was struggling to read. But Kaata, would you likewise introduce yourself and your topic, please?
Yes. And Alison, you can stand and do the presentation, please. Thank you. I don't see too well too, so I need to be next to them. I am from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I traveled the whole day to be here, but I am glad to be here. It means a lot to me to be in a space where I get to share my story, our organization's story, and be in an African feminist space. A little bit about myself before I go into this. I am an advocacy and political education manager at Purposeful. I have a master's degree in gender, globalization, and rights. I am an African feminist. I am by nature a natural killjoy. I, as an African woman, stand out in many ways that I'm not supposed to, but I still do because I refuse to conform to what I am supposed to or not supposed to do. A major part of my feminist identity is the fact that I have two beautiful girls who I every day try to show in my lived experience what you can do and that you can do what you want to do for yourself and not conform to what society tells you. So let me go into this presentation quickly. Today I'm going to present to you on how a feminist organization in Sierra Leone responded to an angry Black woman's call that made history. You can go to the next one. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a framework because this is an academic space. And so how does an outrage of an angry Black woman lead to a sustained movement that achieves major legislative and social change in a conservative West African society? And we know from people that build movements, we know that women-led movements need key ingredients to achieve successes. And some of these include autonomy. It includes the power to locally organize. It also includes a clear mission beyond the greed, beyond the anger. What are we going to do beyond this? It very importantly needs a source and nature of financial and material resources or movements to move. It needs a symbol, a voice, and partners and allies. Using all of those ingredients, I'm now going to show to you what happened in our states in Sierra Leone and how the issue of rape and sexual violence got so much attention, because this is something that is part of our culture. We call it rape culture, but the attention was not on it. It's been done in ways that people thought it was okay, and this is how you're supposed to live. Next slide, please. So there's a problem. There is a problem of sexual violence in Sierra Leone. And this is just in Sierra Leone, right? According to our demographic health survey, 61% of women aged between 15 to 49 have experienced violence by anyone since age 15. And particularly because I work for an organization that pay attention to adolescent girls, 25% of girls aged 13 to 19 years old have experienced rape as a form of violence in their community. These are high numbers. This is not supposed to be happening. But we know that the power structures that allow sexual abuse to persist are hundreds of years old. And rape culture is normalized because survivors are being shamed and victim blamed, right? There are policies in our laws that give you the undue burden as a survivor in reporting abuse and institutionalize this rape culture. And of course, an underinvestment in comprehensive sexual education. Till today, this is the 21st century, 2023. And we're working on, please go back. We're working on comprehensive sexual education, and we have interreligious councils on our, in the how should I put, coalition that is working on that. And we couldn't call it comprehensive sexual education because they're afraid that it would encourage children to have sex. It would encourage teenagers to have sex. It's very interesting. Anyway, those are some of the problems why rape culture is institutionalized in our community. So that's the problem we have. This is a big problem. We still have it, but I'm just trying to go next. So we know that these systems are not inevitable, and girls and women are resisting every day, as they have for millennia. Some of it will not come up. We don't see it, we don't hear about it. But we know that girls in their communities, by the work we do, organically resist to everything that happens to them, especially things that bring violence to their bodies and bodies of other women. And we know that when they come together to take collective action, they can shift the power. And this is where we come in. I'll just give you now a little overview of what we do at Purposeful. So we like to say we're the world's first African rooted hub. And what we do is resource girls' activism all over the world. We are headquartered in Sierra Leone, but we've worked in over 80 countries in the world, and we have staff in over 40 countries in the world. We're a young organization, we're 5 years old, but we're very radical, very young, very activist, and we center the political power of young feminists across the world. So we work so that girls activists and their allies have access to resources, networks, and platforms that power their activism. So we do give grants to a lot of girls and girl-led organizations, and we also do this understanding that power is important. So what we do is we distribute power assets, that's the grants, the funding of girls' resistance. We build collective power, which is a base of raising consciousness and nurturing solidarity. That's where we say we do feminist political education work. We organize power holders, which we do when we work with governments, and we transform power structures. That's a short brief of what we do at Purposeful. And now we go into the angry Black woman. So there's an angry Black woman. There's an issue of rape in Sierra Leone. rape is a culture in Sierra Leone. And this angry black woman, her name is Asma James. She's an award-winning journalist and women and girls advocate. She's a media personality in Sierra Leone. She has over 20 years of experience in broadcast journalism and management. She uses her platform to create opportunities and voices for diverse social justice issues. And due to this work that we did together, it's called the Black Tuesday Movement. She was one of the 2019 BBC 100 Inspiring and Influential Women recipients for her work with the movement. So let me tell you what the movement was about. The moment of anger came when a 5-year-old child was brutally raped by her uncle in 2018. She was left paralyzed too, so he did not only rape her, he pushed her down, paralyzed her, and she was left to die. Yes, she went through that. She lived for a little while. She went through various forms of surgery. They had to fly her out to India and everything, and she subsequently died in 2022. So from 2018 to 2022, she suffered all of that abuse. Her mom, everybody around her. And what happened was, she's not the only one, to be fair. A lot of girls, babies, we've heard stories of 3-year-olds, 3-month-olds, 60-year-old women, 18-year-olds. It's our reality. That's the reality we have. Next slide, please. So this moment turned into a movement. This particular case of this girl turned into a movement, and it became the call for Black Tuesday. So what happened is, Asma has the platform of the radio, and she has a popular 9 o'clock radio show that everybody listens to. It tells you current affairs of what's happening in the country. And she was so outraged when she heard about this. She was told by the family. She called everybody on the radio show on a particular Tuesday, said, today everybody should wear black. To go to work, to do anything, let's all meet at a central location. And then we criminalizing comprehensive and out-of-court settlements. So we know as Africans that some of these things, you're shamed into a way that you can't speak about it. So even your family is finding ways to hide it and say, oh, no, they didn't rape her. Okay, maybe if he steps to her, let him marry her, and things like that. So it then became, if this is something that is sin, what we're going to do, that itself is a crime. You cannot do that. And then the introduction of a new offense of aggravated sexual assault and making special provisions in the law to hold criminal liable who abuse extort sex, including teachers, lecturers, employers, and even religious leaders. This is very nice on paper, I know. I always like to say that this was the success of the movement. It's very important that as activists, we have laws that we can stand on and say this is what we're using to hold people accountable. What is more important is how do we then use the laws. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a closing reflection and say that we understood that the success of the movement is a combination of years of organizing, because it was not only us. This has been an issue for years. The difference is we took the moment as a movement and made it into a movement instead of just people being aggrieved or angry for one moment and then everybody moves on to the next thing. We took advantage of that moment. And this is because of funding, which is very important. It's also because of the relationships we have with people. This movement spurred more local action. And one of the things we're very proud of is something we call the Survivor Solidarity Fund. And this fund was Sierra Leonean based. We raised money in Sierra Leone. I think it came out that we're the second poorest country in the world. Just recently, I think last week. In Sierra Leone, we raised over $109,000. This is in Sierra Leone, right? In Sierra Leone, this fund was led by Sierra Leoneans speaking to people on radios, telling them we need money to fund organizations that deals with survivors in times of sexual violence. And in less than 2 months, we were able to raise that kind of money. So it's something we're very proud of. But we're also aware that we were limited in ways, right? So some of the limitations we had was there was so much anger, right? We moved at such speed that some of the reforms were not comprehensive. I'll give you an example. So the new law, what happens is if you're a teenager, this is also part of our colonial structures, right? Because we're still with this 18-year-old as an adult and consent and everything. So if I'm 18 or 19 and I have a boyfriend that is 17 or vice versa, and we are in a relationship, but I am still a child by our law. So if my parents, for example, does not want me to be in that relationship, my parent can just go and report and say I've been raped because I'm underage. And what happens then? It criminalizes the teenager because if I'm 17 or 18 or 19, this is normal age that people are supposed to be dating at this age group, but our law does not allow for that, this new law. Another thing that it did was some of the reforms were not distinctly feminist because it paid so much attention on the incarceration system. And we know as feminists that is not feminist. And because people were calling for things like they should be castrated. Castrate a man that rapes a child. Simple. So it was that extreme that people were that angry that they were calling for things like that, that now you can go to life in prison because of that. Another thing was the over-centralization of a single character, which was the angry Black woman. She led the movement. People knew her for the movement. And sometimes it's difficult when all of the attention is on one person. So you need the person for everything. You have to, it's hard to work. When you're walking in the background, you know what that means. That when it's on picture and you're seeing it, it's easier. But at the background, if everything has to be on that one person, it takes a lot of work. Another bad problem was the infantilization of rape discourse. So because it was a child that was raped, it became about a child being raped. It did not become about the rape culture. So the anger was, children are being raped. Children are being raped. People have been 3 months old babies are being raped. Okay, that's a problem, but there's a whole culture of rape in Sierra Leone. Married women are being raped. They're at home and their husbands are raping them. Why are we not talking about that? So we then began to reduce it in a way where it has to be so graphic for people to respond to it. And that itself is a flawed narrative because it doesn't have to be graphic for people to respond to it, but that was the only way we could get response from people. Even men, if you say, oh, they raped this girl, they will say to you, yeah, what was she doing there? Maybe she was out partying. Oh, did you see what she wore? But if it's a baby, I'm sorry, even if she was in Pampers or, it's easier to get people's attention when you have to make it so graphic. These are some of the things we saw as limitations because it's not about the rape of a child. It's about the culture of rape that exists in our society. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of my talk.
Thank you very much, Kaata, and perfectly to time as well. I often wonder about that we speak about the most horrendous violence, but somehow we have to do it in the framework of on time, to budget, and how we manage that as feminists, I don't know. But wasting no further, I always want to have another breathing exercise, but I think let's move over to questions and see how we deal with this rage. Questions, comments, contributions? And seeing as I've left my glasses at home today, maybe just identify yourself when you stick your hand up.
Hi. So this is actually, it's a question for all of the presenters. Since about 2015, 2016, I work here at this university. Since Rhodes was full and Fees was full, been really interested in anger philosophically. And there is a lot of really important work that shows us that anger can point to social injustice in the world, right? Particularly when expressed by marginalized bodies and spaces. So I've been thinking about this for quite a while and I'm completely sold. But how do you respond to people who just say, well, look, anger, yes, it might do that and it can do that sometimes, but how do we know? And how do we know when it's not just irrational? Because there's always just those people who just push back. against anger and rage. And so I wanted to just get your thoughts on how you respond to that when people just refuse to listen to that. Thanks.
I think that when there is that resistance to anger, it's never neutral, and it's never like there's always a sense of, okay, but are you actually listening to what is being expressed here? Because telling somebody that their anger is irrational, in my opinion, is a way to silence somebody. Because anger doesn't come out of nowhere. Anger is a response to something, to violence, to to the injustice. Anger is a rational response. Because when something is happening that is wrong or that is rendering people unsafe, responding in whatever calm, passive way people expect you to, then can seem irrational. And so I feel like the dismissal of anger and the attempts to silence and to tell people, no, but that doesn't work, or we can't take you seriously now, is just another enactment of that same silencing that causes the anger. So it's a constant loop. So I think that for me particularly, I'm very aware of the spaces where my anger is not allowed, or where I need to package myself differently. And it is something that I think about as well, because oftentimes it's very difficult to get your point across when you already know that you're coming up against somebody who's choosing not to hear you, and somebody who's creating all of these rules and all of these conditions for how you need to present to be heard, when what you're saying is enough and your truth is enough. And so I don't know if there's an answer. I think it's just no. Like, no.
Right.
No.
So I wonder if that brings us back to Dina's distinction between refusal and resistance. That might be a moment in which refusal.
But I also think it's important that we're angry. I also think, though, that as activists and people that
kind of use that as a crutch or a crutch of experience, because it's not necessarily all that we have. You feel pressured if you find something new in the emotional body, the spiritual body. If something has been presented to you and it has not been named, then you feel alien. And it's not necessarily the most human thing is the discovery. Is all that is unknown. The God consciousness is in the experiencing of all the things that cannot be named, and then maybe finding the concubine of relevance to people, to experience.
I can't resist contributing from the chair. It's just to say that I think part of the problem is the backwardness. Because if you're coming from an African spiritual perspective, then you know that the ancestor who speaks through you can be any gender. And it has no relationship whatsoever to the sex of your body or the gender of your presentation. And so the kind of fluidity is very innate to our ontology. The problem is when we're coming out of colonization with all these binaries, and we kind of go, okay, how does this relate to that? Well, of course, the bottom line is it doesn't, except in the sense that we shall conquer. But to dialogue between the world of the binary and the world where it's very normal and natural that gender is whatever it is. Depends on who's speaking through you at the moment and who you're attracted to or who your ancestors attract. It gets complex. But anyway, I think that's a great way to move into the next session. So I'm just going to give you all a minute each to wind up on the topics of rage and refusal and I think constructive activism, and then we'll go for the next even deeper session. If it could be.
I guess I'll start. After winding up, thank you so much for your contributions and for all of you for being here and being present. It's a conversation really that to me, it's one that I'm discovering every day and one that I'm arriving to every day. The conversation that I'm in with my own rage and with my own expression, it's something that for a long time I did kind of subscribe to this idea of, if I can't name everything, it isn't real, or if I can't find a way to package it, then I don't own my own experience well enough. And there's a lot of once again feeling like I'm failing to be feminine in the way that I am learning. I can be failing to be queer in the way that I know I can be, but all of this is not mine. It's something that I have taken on because of the subscription that other people and other structures have put onto me. So really, I'm just in a space where I'm allowing rage to lead and to teach me, and it's a conversation that will go on. But thank you so much.
I particularly enjoyed their contribution about refusal and how sometimes things don't have to be rational. You don't have to explain why you feel the way you feel. And thinking about it in relation to the stories that I presented on, these are women who are not perfect. And one of my favorite things that one of my friends says is that sometimes you deserve the right to be mediocre. And often women are not afforded the opportunity to exist as they are. Sometimes you are a complex character, you're not nice every day, you're not palatable every day. And in this conversation and listening to everyone else speak about what they're working on, their poetry, I've just realized the importance of what it is that we're doing and why we need to show alternative narratives and the different forms that women and other subordinate bodies exist and weave through the world. And it's through that, just saying we are here, that we influence social discourse and direction towards comprehensive change. Yeah. So thank you for listening.
Yes, so I'm just going to continue from what she said, that it's important that we're all here. I think for me, it's the space that we have as women, as people, non-binary people, where as Black people and as African people, where we can sit and tell our stories and listen to each other. So I personally did my master's in Ireland, and it was in feminism and all of that. And everything they were saying, most of it was white feminisms. And so I'm constantly asking my professor, okay, what are Black women contributions in this? Oh, well, they'll say, oh, there's some literature over there. There's something you can point to over there. But I know that this is not strange. This is an African thing. Two things can be true. It can be a white thing and it can be an African thing. Yeah. But why don't we tell the whole story? Why does it have to be one way? So for me, coming here was important because it said African feminism. I said, this is a space I want to discover because it's African. And I am an African feminist. And I want to be able to relate to other African feminists in general to see how do we then continue to learn, unlearn, and relearn and tell our stories in our own way. So I'm just happy to be here, to listen to the stories, to be in community with every one of you. And thank you for listening to us.
Amazing presentations. I'm delighted that my feminist grandchildren are so bright and alert and incisive. And thank you all for some great contributions. And I guess see you in the next session.
Yes.